My name is Dominique Sanders, and I am a proud alumnus of North Carolina A&T State University, and I now work for Common Cause North Carolina.
And I am John Holdsclaw, another proud North Carolina A&T graduate, and I sit on the board of Common Cause North Carolina.
Well, I'm Henry Frye. I'm an Aggie from ancient times. But glad to see that both of you are working for a good cause.
Yes,
How's
sir.
And as Aggies do, of course.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what
Aggie
Aggies
pride,
do.
Aggie pride, always,
Yes,
always.
okay.
And we have here today, obviously, Justice Henry Frye, as he stated, another proud A&T graduate, here to talk with him about his career, as well as things that are relevant to Common Cause North Carolina as it relates to just expanding democracy. So, would you like to ask the first question, Dominique?
Sure. Justice Frye, as it relates to young people, can you talk to us about the importance of young people getting out to vote? Here at Common Cause, we have an HBCU outreach program where we work on 7 out of 10 HBCUs in North Carolina, and we have democracy fellows, also students who work on those campuses with us, to just promote civic engagement and increase the vote on their campus. Would you have some words of wisdom to those campuses about voting in North Carolina HBCUs?
I'll be glad to talk about it and let you all decide whether it's wisdom or not. How's that? But I know about the program a little bit. I've dealt with them and maybe even contributed $1 or $2 at some point. So I think it's a great thing. But maybe let me just back up and start with this. I'm chairman of the board of the Institute of Political Leadership. It is a nonprofit institution. It's an institution that is not Democratic, not Republican, not but we work with people from all the political spectrums.
Okay.
And our overall mission is to improve the practice of democracy in North Carolina. Okay? So how do we do that? We have 2 classes a year of people who we try to train to be good politicians, if there's such a word. Okay? And what we do is teach them everything from ethics, from how to make a campaign speech, how to negotiate, and just a lot of things of that nature, in order that when they decide to either run for office or to manage somebody else's campaign, that they do it with a view toward improving the practice of democracy in North Carolina. And so we usually match it up about half Democrat, half Republican, and 1 or 2 from one or other areas, either not affiliated with a party, or with one of the parties that has only a few people in it and things of that nature. And I'm committed to it. Now that's not a job. I'm chair of the board. I'm a volunteer, so I work for free. We have a couple of people who we pay to run the program. Maybe I shouldn't say pay, who we half pay to to run the program. But then we bring in experts. We have people who are experts at fundraising, who are experts at in the area of ethics and things of that nature. And it's just a great program. So I wanted to get that as a little background, because we believe that it's okay to have people to have different views, but we believe that you should be able to discuss them intelligently and not fuss at people all of the time. Instead, talk with them and try to see is there common ground to change things. And I believe in it strongly. And so in talking to young people, even in high school and elementary school, I said, get interested in politics, in your classroom, run for an office. If you don't want to run for an office, find a good person that you think would do well as president of the class or secretary or what, and support that person. And you do that all the way through elementary school, high school, college, and wherever you are, because the practice of democracy is not something that it is inherent in people, right? It's not something that just, well, yeah, I know this and I know that, but it's an experience that you learn, and you learn it from people who've been in the fold, so to speak. And I don't want to spend all my time on the Institute of Political Leadership.
We spend as much time as you like.
We have a board of volunteers, people who have had, some who've been elected to office, a few who've never been elected to office, but who are interested in improving the practice of democracy in North Carolina. That's our focus. We'd like to improve it all over the country and over the world, but you don't want to tackle things too big, right?
Yeah.
You want to tackle something that you can make a difference in. And I don't mind telling you that we have several members of the legislature who are graduates of the program. Our Chief Justice is a graduate of the program. Our Secretary of State for North Carolina is a graduate. The State Treasurer is a graduate of the program, and we have one or two people on the appellate courts who are graduates. So, and of course, many who are in town councils and things of that nature. So, it's a great program, and so I push it. Okay.
Okay.
Now I'll leave the institute and talk about things. There are a lot of good things that go on in the world, and there are a lot of bad things. Then there are a lot of things in between somewhere, right? Where reasonable people can disagree. So one of the first things is learn to disagree without being disagreeable. Learn to disagree without being
some great quotes today.
disagreeable, right?
Right.
I mean, you don't have to jump up and down and call people all kind of names to disagree with them,
Right.
you know? And there's too much of that today in politics and other things in the community and things of that nature. And what I found through the years, and I guess you all sort of know part of my background, but I found that in every organization that I've been in every political office I've ever been in, I found that there are some things that both sides can agree on. You know, there's some things, there's some values that almost everybody has. Not everybody, but almost. And so you start with that. And once you build that friendship, that appreciation, that understanding with each other, you know, we both agree on this, we both agree on that, but we don't agree over here, right? So we can try to convince each other. We don't try to knock them down to do it. We try to build them up, because now we know something about that person. And so we can use what we know about the person to talk about how we can make whatever the problem is easier to resolve. And you can't resolve them all.
You can't.
Remember Abraham Lincoln's statement, you know? Well, I better not get into that. He was one of the most interesting of all presidents. But that's a story for another day. We'll wait till.
I've read several autobiographies on him, and I would have to agree.
Yeah, he was an interesting person.
He really was.
Somebody asked me which president, if I could, bring up and I'd like to interview, he would be the one. Because at times he did or said some strange things. And I'd like to get his explanation. Why in the world did you do that?
I could pick his brain about why he said what he said.
Why did you do that? Or why did you say that? Why did you take that approach? You know? But then he said some things that I don't want to start quoting them, but that I just think are absolutely top notch, you know. And he did some things that I wonder if any other president could have done, you know, assuming that he wanted to do it. But he did a lot of good things. Now, you didn't come to talk about
No,
that.
no,
So we'll leave that.
we're here today to hear from you. So
Okay, well, you get me talking now. You have to stop me. I get me wound up.
I'm ready to have been the bell, and she can talk too, so don't worry about that.
All right, okay.
And Justice Frye is someone who, and I can hear you talk about the Institute and the passion that you have for the work that you're doing there, but as someone who has spent a majority of his life in service, not only to the country, but to the state of North Carolina, what was it originally that drew you to that service? I mean, be it military, be it in the State House, State Senate, and ultimately in the North Carolina Supreme Court. What was it about that drew you to that work? Because I'm sure there were obstacles, and I'm sure that you had to overcome them. And so I'm just really curious about that.
But I have to give you a little of my background.
That's what I want.
I grew up on a farm.
Yes, sir.
12 children. We would sell them all there at the same time, but there was always a group there. And the first thing was that I learned that you have to get along with the rest of your family. You can't be a bully in your family because they'll figure a way to sort of, bring you down to wherever you're supposed to be, maybe a little lower than you're supposed to be. So I start with that. The second thing that I start with is I grew up in the church. I mean, went to Sunday school, church. We were Baptist, but there was a Methodist church across the street. So, and we didn't meet as often as they did. So we'd go to ours and leave there and go over to the Methodist church. We had Sunday school at the Baptist church, and so a lot of things that I learned. And one of the things I liked about our Sunday school growing up was that the older people let the young people participate. We were teachers and Sunday school superintendents and various things in high school, and they let us do it. And then we had other programs where we would develop things, and we had a group that developed a program, and we went to other churches, and having these programs and so forth. So that background, I think, helped a great deal. Some would consider this a little old-fashioned. We had a little Boy Scout troop, and somebody said at one point that if you knew everything in the Scout book, it was the equivalent of 2 years of college, and I believed it.
Yeah.
So I studied that Scout book. It's got a lot of good stuff in there that you never would know. So that had some background. I love to read, so I read a lot, and so I knew about King Arthur and his knights, and Robin Hood and his merry men, and a whole lot of other stuff like that, I love poetry. I mean, I loved poetry. We did it in school, we did it in Sunday school, and we did it in our classes in high school, and then on my own, I even wrote poems, some rhymed, some didn't, but in doing the poetry, I learned a lot of lessons from poetry, and one of the days I'll recite some of it for you, but not today. No, we don't have time for that today now. Good. But so that's a lot of the background. But 2 or 3 quick things. You may be very smart, but there may be somebody else just as smart as you are, right? You may think that you know what's right and how to do things and so forth, but there's somebody else that thinks that they know too. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I think you have to do is respect other people. Give them a chance to hear. Give them a chance for you to hear them as well as for them to hear you. Kind of a simple thing. I heard a guy say one time, he said, you got 1 mouth and 2 ears. He said, so, listen more than you talk. Right? I thought that was pretty good, yes. Pretty good illustration to make the point. But So the other thing, and I go through 2 or 3 quick things.
Take your time.
The second one is that, well, I'll give you this. It's almost a quote that my principal used to say. And I'll say it the way he did, but I don't know what the original quote was, but it's something like this. It says, "Make every occasion a great one, for you know not when fate has chosen your name for a higher place."
Wow.
And I've never forgotten that, you know. And I have interpreted that to be, don't be stupid around folks. That may be the very person that could give you a good job. It might be a person who could give you good advice, right? It may be the person you want to marry one day, you know? So, you know, every occasion, in other words, I don't mean be artificial, but don't be stupid.
Right.
You know, sometimes we have stupid thoughts.
Right.
I do. I was sitting in church one day and I had a stupid thought, you know, and I said, I ought to just jump up and say, "Hey!" And then I said, now that would be kind of stupid to do that, right? So now a person who is mentally off would have gone on and done that. But people who have all their faculties and who are sensible would say, well, no, that's not the appropriate thing to do here. I do that somewhere else, right? So use your common sense. And sometimes we don't do that. Sometimes we do stupid things. So limit them if you can. You know, occasionally if you live long enough, you're probably going to do something stupid. But don't do it too often.
Right.
And don't do it at the wrong time.
Right.
In the wrong place, because it will affect your life as you go on. You know, your body. I'm a little religious, so I say that God gave us a body, and take care of it. You know, don't put stuff in there that defiles it. You know, take care of it. You can do that. And still enjoy life and get along. Sometimes it's easy to do things that because everybody else is doing it. That's the language that, you know, I've heard a lot of people use. Oh, everybody else is doing it. Well, first of all, everybody else isn't doing it. That's the wrong statement. That's not true. A lot of people may be doing it, but that doesn't make it right. You know. My mother used to ask us when we said others are doing this or that. She said, "What's your name?" I said, "What's that person's name?" I said, "Well, I can't control what that person's doing, but I'm telling you that that's not the right thing to do, you know." And so sometimes we have to remind people of things, you know. Well, I'll quit. Any more? Let me get me a drink of water.
Okay.
You get me wound up, you know, I get talking.
This is all great stuff. I mean, this is just, you know.
Well, I'll give you something else. And this is just something that happened to me. When I tried to register to vote, the person started asking me a lot of questions about naming the signers of the Declaration of Independence and name certain presidents and various things of that nature. And this was at a time that, well, I'll go ahead and give you the details.
Please.
I had graduated summa cum laude from A&T. I had a commission in the United States Air Force. I had served as a lieutenant and captain in the United States Air Force in Japan and Korea, in charge of people. And then he starts asking me all of these questions that I knew that I didn't need to answer in order to be able to register to vote. At that time, you had to be able to read, I don't know whether read and write or read or write a section of the Constitution. And So at any rate, I told him I didn't know the answer and wasn't going to try. He said, then you don't qualify, so you didn't register. Okay? So what did I do? You know, I felt like popping him in the head. Okay? I felt like, you know, saying a lot of mean things to him and everything. But I thought to myself, you know, what good is that going to do?
Right.
Okay. So what happened is I went to the chair of the Board of Elections and told him what happened. And he apologized. He said, if you go back, you won't have that problem. When I went back, there was a woman there doing the registration. And she had me to write a section of the Constitution, which I wrote. She said, you passed. Okay? So I solved that problem for me. But fast forward many years later, when I was elected to the legislature, guess what my first bill was?
Something in regards to voter registration.
A bill can't even get the correct title of it. Anyway, the bottom line of it was a bill to abolish the literacy test as a requirement for voting in North Carolina. It was said to be the bill least likely to get through the legislature. So I worked with folks and we got it through the House, where I was a member. And the word was that they were going to kill it in the Senate. The Senate passed it with a better vote than the House. But this was a constitutional amendment. So what happens when the legislature passes a constitutional amendment? The people have to vote on it, right? They defeated it in the election. And the literacy test is still on the books in North Carolina today. No, it's not. You know, it's not valid in the sense that, you know, you can't do it in many parts of the state, and so you don't do it anywhere in North Carolina. But sometimes the long way around is the best thing to do something. You know, don't let your emotions cause you to mess up something. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now there's some other experiences that other people had which are worse than that, you know. But sort of keep that in mind in terms of things. Some things you can resolve right now, right? Others, you have to kind of work around it in order to get through it. So that's my take. Okay.
Well, interesting.
You got one more question?
One more. Interesting you brought up voter registration. I was going to ask you, how do you feel about the current voter ID bill and with the trial going on in Winston-Salem? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, number one, let's see now, should I comment on that? I guess I can comment a little bit. The thing's in litigation, so I have to be careful what. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think of I don't think anybody at our law firm is in it, I don't guess. But at any rate, I'm speaking as Henry Frye, and the former legislator, right?
Yes, sir.
It's just clear to me, as clear as you can make it, that the effort was to reduce the number of certain people who register and vote. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, that to me it's very clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. There's no evidence that I saw, and I tend to keep up with things like that there was any massive fraud in North Carolina in terms of people voting who weren't supposed to vote, unless it was in absentee voting. I don't know about that. See, in absentee voting, you know, people from registered, you know, you from North Carolina, you in Europe, you can register by sending something in. If there was any fraud, it seemed to me that's where it may have been.
Right.
But they didn't bother that, right? Instead, what they did was come up with all these different things, you know, and reduce this. Why would you reduce the time that people have to register to vote? I mean, why would you do that? Seemed to me you ought to give people all the time they need to vote, you know, give them plenty of time. Sometimes, you know, everybody can't just jump up and run and vote today,
Right.
you see. So it's a terrible thing, and I hope the court strikes it down. If they don't, I hope the legislature can change and they can put those things back in there to allow registered and voting on a more frequent basis. And I won't go into the details again, but when I was in the legislature, one of my biggest things was trying to open up the practice, not the practice, but open up the voting machinery for North Carolina. I mean, you had to register way ahead of certain dates. I mean, they had all kind of restrictions, you know, back then. And slowly we began, and I say we because it wasn't just me, several of us began to work on making it easier to register and vote. And we did. And they kept expanding it, you know, until the last few years when they started cutting it back and making it harder for people to do it. Probably one good thing about the voter identification things that they brought up is that it has activated a lot of people into saying, well, let's fix it so that these people can register and vote, and let's get out here and work, and let's encourage them to do it if necessary. You know, to have voting patterns, you know, where you can see and practice voting, whatever, you know. So that's one good thought about it. It makes us more diligent in working to get people to vote, because even today there's still a lot of people that will not bother to register, and then some will bother to register and then won't bother to vote. And I think that's terrible, and I think we need to continue to work on it. I've had people, let me say this and then I'll leave it. I've had people, and one or two intelligent people that I've talked to, I think intelligent anyway, and I was asking them, you know, have you voted? I don't bother to vote. My vote ain't gonna make no difference. That to me, I come nearer wanting to punch somebody in the face with that than I do about anything else.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so I get that person gets a good lecture from me.
I agree.
And usually they walk away
Yeah.
because I'm saying, you know, that's a defeatist attitude. You know, let's make a difference. You can't make a difference.
And then too many people have fought for that right to take
People have lost their lives trying to register and vote, and you, an intelligent, supposedly educated person, and walking around here and talking about your vote isn't going to make any difference.
You've given us some great quotes, and one of my favorites is democracy is not a spectator sport.
Absolutely.
And so if you're going to stand on the side and look and not participate, then you know you've got nothing to say primarily. So don't be a spectator. Get into the game. I think in so many things that you said today. Yeah. Along that same line, people used to talk a lot in the barber shop. They still do. Oh, they do? They still do. Yeah, at any rate, this is a long time ago. I was in the barber shop, and this person was all talking about you need to do this and do that. And I said, did you vote in the last election? Never did answer, you know. Yeah, I said, did you or did you not? None of your business what I did. Well, I'm convinced that he didn't vote. And now he's going to go around here doing all this complaining about this is not right, and they're not doing this, and they're not doing that, you know. And he jumped on the council person about not doing this. I said, why don't you run for office? Let's see how many votes you can get. Maybe you can do it right, you know. Well, you can tell I feel pretty strongly when I get into this area. Common Cause is a good organization. Let me say that. I know that from past things, and I've worked with a few of the people who worked with it, including some of the
young people that you've had.
Yes, sir.
And I want to encourage you to keep on, folks. I'll put it in the vernacular, keep on keeping on.
And that's what we plan to do.
Thank you so much, Justice Frye, for sitting down and talking with Common Cause, and thank you for your legacy that you have left in North Carolina.
Yes. And what we would encourage you to do, and thank you as well, Justice Frye, for the time today, is that to continue to stay involved, stay informed. And one way to do that is by joining and organizing and working with Common Cause North Carolina as we work to continue strengthening democracy and continue on with the legacy of great North Carolinians and Americans here like Justice Frye as we continue to work to do what we're doing at Common Cause North Carolina. Thanks, Justice Frye.
Thank you.
Thank you.